So what you're saying is this should be my very first Sonic game, right?
Stop it.
I don't even know what I just saw. Generic Control into that goes Moo here, back with another video, and today we're doing something a little bit different. We are looking into what happened to Sonic 06. I've still never played a Sonic game. A couple weeks ago, I reacted to the Silver campaign by Lythero, where he played through all of Sonic 06, and oh, it was rough. It was actually one of the longest videos I've ever done. You can check out my reaction to that video. I'll leave it right up there. Also, link down below in the description. Also, in a playlist on my channel with all my other Lythero reactions going in chronological order. But we are doing Sonic the Hedgehog 06 What Happened by Matt McMuscles. I could have swore I've reacted to a Matt McMuscles video in the past, but I don't think I have. I think I was going to and I didn't, or maybe a patron suggested or something, but I believe Pierre suggested this on that Silver campaign video. But this is going to be what happened. Apparently it was the comments on the video were talking about how like development was rushed and they didn't have time to test it, and they just kind of like were forced to put the game out way before it was ready, and it definitely showed. But yet again, I've still never played a Sonic game. I do read our comments, leave them down below. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope I can make this tiny little bit better. But also shout out to the patrons. I could not do this if it was not for them. $3 a month gets you all my reaction videos daily, which is like at least 16 videos a week for $3 a month, which is kind of nuts, and I do it all myself. So shout out to patrons, and I read all your comments as well. So like I said, leave some down below, and also if you like the video, that's also greatly appreciated. I hope you enjoy it, but hopefully it makes your day a tiny little better. Let's go ahead and jump to what happened to Sonic the Hedgehog 06. All right, and maybe I do the fan dub.
Welcome to another baffling,
the Sonic 06 fan dub
episode of What Happened, the show that tests
hopefully
your
this is
brittle
okay with Matt
faith
McMuscles,
in the
by the
video
way.
game industry, makes
If
you
not, let me know, Matt.
ponder the meaning of existence, and constantly has you begging for the
Uber
answer
Hacker
to
Nova.
the eternal question: Sonic 06.
What happened?
Who? Why? What? Okay, not so
I reacted
fast
to
there,
like their
Hedgehogs,
Silver
to
campaign of this,
properly
and
tell
it
the
was-
tale of one of the biggest failures in electronic entertainment. You, dear viewers, and especially Sonic fans, should grab your
Never played a Sonic
crucifixes
game.
and/or
Oof.
Bibles. It's gonna be one bumpy ride through developmental hell.
It's gonna be bad.
2006 was going to be a banner year for Sega. Yeah, they didn't exactly become the big chili dog of third parties that they sought out to become back in 2001, but the industry was heading into the HD era, so there was a chance to start fresh. Part of this new plan was to make a high-definition, sexy,
I mean, the game does look pretty
sensual
good for
Sonic
2006.
the Hedgehog title that would also culminate with the Blue Blur's 15th anniversary. It would
Wait,
also
Sonic
be
is
the
that young?
launch game for the assuredly successful PlayStation 3 and be a
It
moneymaker
was.
for the Xbox 360,
It
which
was,
was starting
hopefully.
to hit its sales stride at that point. Oh, what's this?
that a Wii?
Nintendo's making a new console too. Shit.
The
Well,
Wii?
we gotta have Sonic on that. It was like Sega had a T-shirt launching bazooka, but instead of
Oregon Ducks.
clothing,
So
it was
random.
just crammed with Sonic's twisted, broken body, which will then just shot out in all directions. And Sega figured they'd hit their target eventually. The game would go on to be
yeah.
simply dubbed Sonic
Also,
the
there's things
Hedgehog.
that aren't
It was meant
Shadow,
to be the
and
new
people are like,
starting
you keep
point
calling
for the
that
franchise,
Shadow. I'm like,
spearheaded by
what is
impressive
that?
visuals, wowing pretty much everyone who laid eyes on it. But behind closed doors at Sonic Team,
Hello,
things were,
Sonic Trunks. Where'd he go?
were going well.
Where'd he go?
Through various, mostly hilarious reasons, the Wii version of Sonic 2006 had a few, shall we say, snags. And by snags, I mean it was canceled. The development team was split in twain. Sonic's father walked away from Sega, and the release date of the game, for even more hilarious reasons, could not budge. It had to come out by the end of 2006, and when it did, it left a permanent poop stain on the Hedgehog's chest, a legacy that from that point onward could never really be scrubbed off.
Sonic was never good.
So,
Whoa.
what happened?
What
To
happened?
fully unravel the enormity of Sega's failure to kick off a new generation on the right foot, let's take a light speed dash backwards to the raunchy, filthy, morally corrupt year
what?
of 2004.
Oh, 2004. I was
Shun
7.
Nakamura, the director of such Sega titles as Samba de Amigo and Billy Who and the Giant Y,
Not Sonic.
received word from his bosses at Sega that they were fast-tracking a big Sonic reboot to coincide with the 15th anniversary of the franchise
Fast track?
that was also set to debut on the new generation of consoles.
So wait, they did this in 2
He was
years?
to take up the task of senior game designer on the project. Directing duties would fall to one Yojiro Ogawa, while the producer role would be filled by Yuji Naka, one of the original masterminds behind Sonic. One final team member was also added to the staff, and that was Yoshinari Amate, who had spent most of his 2004 working on a prototype for a quote-unquote realistic game that would use the Havoc physics engine, until Sega just canceled the whole thing outright. He was then moved on to Sonic's big 15th birthday Barfarama during the planning stages, when they were still trying to suss out exactly what it was going to be. With the graphical power of next-gen systems available to them, the team decided on the idea of placing Sonic in a more detailed and grounded world, to which Amake suggested they use the prototype of the game he had been working on as a base, with the player being able to interact with a lot of physics-based objects. This was not a good idea. While full-time development didn't kick off until early 2005, it wasn't long before Sega demanded some sort of demo be put together to show the press.
Also, a lot of people said they wanted this in the comment section.
Since this was the first HD game the team had worked on, paired with the complexity of using the Havoc physics engine, they only had time to squeeze out a non-playable presentation which showed Sonic moving across a grassy landscape and enter some temple ruins. While it was really showing off the tone and scale of what they were going for, most game journalists were excited by what they saw. Now, once E3 was over and the team returned to working on the game in full, things began to get terrible.
They hyped it up.
The problem with tech demos is that they're usually made to just express what the team hopes to achieve and not strictly what's possible. And in this case, almost everything turned out to be very much impossible.
Why was it impossible?
Since Sega is a Japanese company, emphasis was put on prioritizing the PlayStation 3 version of Sonic the Hedgehog, since, you know, the Xbox brand was always kind of considered the biggest laughingstock of the century to Japanese fans.
Really?
The 360 version would be a
I've only ever had
Wii iteration
Xbox.
also
I've never had a
the same
PlayStation.
treatment, that is until Sega finally received the specs for the machine from Nintendo. Very sharpish, Ogawa could see that the Wii version would require crap more work to port over. They decided to split the main team into two groups. One would work exclusively on the Wii, while the remaining staff would continue on the PS3. Even more quickly, Ogawa realized even that wouldn't be possible, and told Sega porting down to the Wii specs wasn't really a thing.
With what they were trying to do,
make a whole new game from the ground up, and that he would direct that.
But somehow they made Call of Duty on the Wii?
This game would go on to be Sonic and the Secret Rings, or at that time be known under the much cooler moniker of Sonic Wildfire.
That is a much better
Ogawa's
working
next
title.
step was to move even more staff over to Secret Wildfire Rings, and got to work, leaving the HD Sonic without a director. Shun Nakamura was then thrust into the position with little notice, and having only worked in that role in much smaller games, simply wasn't prepared for the Herculean task ahead of him. He had to pick up the pieces from Ogawa, but his team had been gutted, and in the most Sega-like behavior ever, Sega didn't add any additional talent to bolster their ranks, so they would need to soldier on with whoever they had left.
Who was in charge of like moving all the people around and everything? Like, how did they not see what was going to happen?
Sonic the Hedgehog would see release the next year for the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, and would be returned to form for the mascot. Development, however, was still going slow, and Nakamura could see that they would need to drastically start cutting back on the game's scale and what was outlined during its planning phase. In earlier leaked gameplay demos, there was going to be a dynamic day and night cycle, a much more fleshed out hub world for Sonic to explore, not just the depressing gulag that was Soliana. Ever wonder why the objective, go to the desert, appears early on in the game? Well, that's a holdover to where there were different hubs for Sonic to explore. Originally, there was going to be desert and snow environments, but all were eventually cut and folded into Soliana. Whew, even at this stage, problems were just piling up, but at least Nakamura could ask seasoned Sonic veteran Yuji Naka for help and guidance to, he's left the company.
He left.
In March of 2006, Mr. Naka announced he was leaving his position within Sega to form his own company.
The disaster coming.
Stating that Sega had stuck him in a managerial role he had become unhappy with and wanted just to get back to creating and developing himself. This departure had been rumored for months, and while it was a loss for Sega, it was a much more devastating loss to Nakamura and his team, or what was left of his team, because guess what? When Yuji left, he took even more staff with him.
This is terrible.
Just who's working on this thing now? At this point, Nakamura's grabbing janitors and sitting them down at workstations. He also then decided
you use the
to
computer?
take the only
You're developing the new
option
Sonic
left,
game.
which was cut even more content to make that release date. While we covered some examples of gameplay-focused exclusions like the hub worlds, this also had a ripple effect across other areas of the game, such as the script and voice acting.
Have you retrieved the Book of Darkness?
Because the game
The
story
Scepter
was
of Darkness
constantly
instead of
changing to
book.
keep up with the amount of shit hitting the chopping block, some things still
How come
sort of
everywhere she
just
looked when
slipped
summoned?
through, like the Scepter of Darkness. This MacGuffin went through a lot of name changes up until the 11th hour, with one of those earlier ones being the Book of Darkness.
Why didn't they just
which is
decide
still
beforehand? It's not a
referenced in
big
the final
deal.
game.
Maybe it had to do with
This
the
is one
animation.
of the biggest, but not the only reason why Sonic 2006's plot is fractured, unfocused, and generally really creepy and awkward. However, the team couldn't spend their time ironing out plot details when they had a lot more pressing matters to address, like falling out of the world and
that's
2-minute-long load times.
Yeah, for
In
everything.
fact, they didn't have time to even address that stuff.
There's
because
so
that's
many
all still
loading
in the game.
screens.
Their main goal was to simply slap all this shit together. E3
And then put it in a box.
2006 was looming, and Nakamura and the three people working under him realized they needed to make the game at least completable in time for its release date that fall. Now, up until this point, Sonic 06 had never
has there been a
had
game like this
hands-on
happen
demo
since then?
available to the public before, and while it wasn't really ready, this was the last E3 before launch, so they had to show something.
Oh yeah, the build hype.
The
I remember
demo
E3
consisted
was
of
like
a Sonic
peak.
and Silver section, and for whatever reason, Silver was originally envisioned to be an orange mink named Venice, but was changed to an edgy, serious character to join the never-ending parade of edgy, serious characters the franchise had been building up.
We need more of them, right? Yeah.
You're not Sonic.
Thanks for.
Reception to the demo was mixed, to say the least. Most of the emotions that rack the soul when playing the final version of Sonic 06, like depression, sadness, frustration, and revulsion,
I'm trying to
were
remember,
echoed
where have I seen these
during
pictures
this
from?
E3. It was still very, very, very unpolished. Sonic would get killed
It was a
easily
demo.
by innocently misplaced jumps, running into things, and many other hallmarks that the game instituted. Still, though, it was a product in development. It was, of course, pre-alpha, so a lot of early previews stated that it would undoubtedly see a bevy of improvements.
Yeah.
And it did, but not really. The next major blip on Sonic's treaded, corpse-laden path to release was September 27th at Microsoft's X06 event, which presented a brand new build of Sonic that featured many improvements to the core gameplay. Although, in a twist that could only happen to Sonic, these improvements were never actually implemented into the main game. See, sometime in early 2006, Sega upper management had struck a deal with Microsoft to promote the game as a more Xbox 360-focused title, putting most of their marketing muscle behind that version in the West, while the PS3 would be the dominant one in Japan. Due to this, the demo of Sonic at Microsoft's event had a few extra levels of polish that the Xbox 360 porting team had time to get out the door. The camera received a lot of tweaks and was more dynamic. Sonic's run animations off boost pads were not as stiff and robotic. His homing attack had a nice forward arc that would maintain
they polished
momentum.
it just to
and of course,
not
there were numerous bug fixes when
keep that in the
interacting with
game?
walls and pretty much every other obstacle. These were
They
all
literally made it
tiny
better and then
improvements,
chose
but there were
not
so
to make it
many
better.
of them that this demo is seen as the superior version of the game. However, since the main skew from a developmental standpoint was the PS3, with the 360 version being the port, these changes were discarded once the new PS3 build was available and were never integrated back into the main developmental pipeline. This improved demo was also released publicly on the 360 marketplace, so lots of fans that went hands-on with this had no idea of all the delights that the final version would show them. This deal with Microsoft further complicated matters, as part of it seemingly was that the game had to release by the end of the year with no room for compromise.
The fact that they had a stiff
even if
due
that
date,
weren't the case, Sega had already mandated that it had to make Sonic's 15th anniversary anyway, so a delay was not in the cards. But why?
If it's
Well,
that important to them,
Sonic and
why
the Secret
didn't they
Rings
put more
had
people
slipped
on
to
the
a
team?
2007 release date and would miss the Wii's launch, so Sega was unwilling to budge on both games, missing the big stupid birthday that nobody really cared about but them. Release the games when they're good, not just to coincide with some fucking fictitious
number.
woodland animal's fake birthday.
Yeah,
Like,
literally.
what are you, crazy? Thus, on the dreaded day of November 14th, the game was released on both consoles, with the PS3 version actually winding up with an improved frame rate, but it was of little comfort to the legions of Sonic fans that had been wrapped in anticipation slash
Okay, George
dread.
just ran through a
While
train.
the fastest thing alive had a few rough patches in his career up to that point, the glove finger could always be pointed at those titles being weird spin-offs developed by Western teams or any other excuses one could make. But no one could excuse this. The game would
I don't
then
even
get
know what I just
slammed
saw.
from pretty much every
A
publication
zero?
in existence, except for one, of course.
Play Magazine.
06
Why?
was criticized for its incredibly lengthy, numerous load times, poor optimization, buggy gameplay, confusing story, huge reliance on non-interactive cutscenes.
How long is this gonna go on?
So what you're saying
and
is
a
this should be my very
distinct lack of
first Sonic
anything
game, right?
really next gen about how it played. This was supposed to be Sonic's splashy comeback into a new generation and a big anniversary event of the franchise's longevity, but it wound up simply being a standard bearer.
They've
for
released
why
Sonic
Sega
games
could
since then,
never
right?
really get the Hedgehog's games working as well in 3D as many of his contemporaries did. Knowing all of this, we can at least see the massive amount of
What
reasons as
in
to
the-
why the game
He didn't even
failed
show,
so spectacularly.
the trigger
Unrealistic
snake
demands
guy
by
thing.
Sega, the departure of Yuji Naka, unfamiliar hardware and technology, and of course, the splitting of the teams irreversibly
Okay,
destroying
if
any
that's a
chances
team, if
it
that
had
team
to
is
be a
split
quality
into
product.
3 different
What's
games,
more,
that's
Sonic and the Secret Rings,
not-
while
not-
trying a number
no.
of different things,
Not for a
wasn't left without its
major
own blemishes
game
and
developer.
naysayers. Frustrating controls and design made it fairly divisive, but it wasn't something that couldn't have been fixed by both teams getting the proper manpower and time to deliver on their promises.
I wonder
Sega
if these
was,
days, if something like this happened, they could
is
just, like,
said to be mortified
get,
by
like,
the failure to this
I don't know,
day.
indie
a
game
sentiment
developers to
shared
work on
by
that?
the actual team members, with Nakamura simply stating, development
'Cause, like,
on
fan-made
next
stuff is
generation
so good.
machines proved to be very difficult
You
for
think?
us, with many things we didn't understand.
that's actually-
comprehending the
that is
variety of new
understandable, but
technologies, the new
you gotta
hardware,
see that coming,
handling the enormous
right?
amount of information. These were all aspects that far surpassed both my expectations and experience. Upon its launch and critical drubbing,
I
Sega
guess they
also
did expect
canceled
it to be
plans
difficult,
for a
but-
proposed Windows version of the title, something that was teased in interview brochures that threatened the game would curse PCs sometime after the launch of the console iterations. Sega even doubled down on this in the instruction
What do you
booklet for the PC
mean?
version of Sonic Freeriders, the first of the racing trilogy that further
There's a
cemented
racing
the
trilogy?
Hedgehog's
Is that supposed to be like
prominent
Mario Kart?
reputation that same year. Sega even went out of their way to delist the games on demand version of Sonic 06 in
$1.
2010
Oh,
because
picture
of the
pack was
perception
$1.
it was still damaging the brand years later. But to be fair, this was probably one of the only smart decisions they made in regards to this whole debacle. It's also pretty clear that some of the cut concepts and ideas from 06 sped their way into the follow-up, Sonic Unleashed, including
yeah,
the
they did
day-night
do-
cycle, multiple hubs, and more momentum-based gameplay, until of course Sega decided to take a werehog-sized
What?
poop load
On
all
what?
over that potential.
Oh,
It's
well.
been 13 years, and Sonic Team has had some definite highs and some undeniable
So
lows
really,
since, and the major
the
players that
next
were at the
game, this
helm
was just
have
like a
had
test
similar
run for the
seesaw-like
game.
careers.
The game that followed was
Shun
what they
Nakamura
pretty much
went to direct the
advertised.
charming Rhythm Thief and the Emperor's Treasure, but would
Haven't heard
also
of him.
be one of the main producers behind Sonic Forces. Yujiro Okawa left the company in 2012 and seemingly hasn't returned to game development since.
That's not a
Yuji
good sign.
Naka would never find the success he had with Sega again, producing titles such as Let's Tap, Ivy the Kiwi, and Rodeo
Oh,
the
Kiwis!
Sky Soldier,
Kiwis are so
before
cute.
moving on to Square Enix in 2018
Oh.
in an unknown capacity. And thus concludes the story
That's
of Sonic
unfortunate that it didn't-
2006, a game
didn't
which
work out the way
rocked
you
the
wanted to.
franchise so hard it never really recovered from it, at least not fully. While certain talented fans
Footage
have
by
brought some
Nintendo?
much-needed positivity back to the series, many missteps have been made since then, all of them ripe for
There's a
more
lot of
what
Sonic games.
happens of their own. And if you'd like to toss one of those bloated blue carcasses up on our stage, let me know in the comments below, or send an angry email about how you think Sonic 06 still has some redeeming qualities.
Do people think it has redeeming
McMuscles
qualities?
at
I mean, there's some people that comment on
gmail.com.
videos saying that they didn't
Thanks
mind
for
the game.
watching.
Which, I mean, if you enjoy it, all the power to you. All the power to you. If you enjoyed the game, don't let anybody tell you it's, you know, different than how you feel about it. If you enjoy it, you enjoy it. But this is a good video. Click for more. Well, there's nothing there, unfortunately. There's no end screen. Was that supposed to be like an annotation before they removed annotation? Ah, good times. But yeah, no, there's the, what is it? Oh, here's the silver campaign. Wait, where is the, oh, is that the fan dub? Yeah, that's the real-time fan dub. Maybe I'll do that. I've done a couple of them in the past. I think I did Sonic Adventure 2, and I think I did Resident Evil 2 for the fan dubs. Haven't done one since, but that would be a long video. I have to record that on a completely separate day. So if you want to see that, please let me know. It might be coming out sooner than you think, but I hope your subscribers are approaching 100,000 subscribers. Matt, great video. It's 5 years old. I don't think anything has really changed since then. Maybe, I don't know, maybe with the people that left the team, maybe things have happened with them since then, that they've worked on other projects and whatnot, but great video. I look forward to watching more and maybe doing the Sonic 06 fan dub. This was just kind of like an idea I had based off the comments of the other video, and I look forward to reading your comments on this video. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Hope it made it a tiny little bit better. But until the next video, take care and keep the music.
We were playing as soldiers, making soldiers.